What if we could lift the veil between life and death? What if we could peer beyond that final heartbeat to discover what truly awaits us in the unknown? Before we talk about the beyond, let's define our starting point. What is death? At its most basic, death is the cessation of vital biological functions. Medical professionals often define clinical death as the instant the heart stops beating and blood stops reaching the brain. However, thanks to modern medicine, people have been resuscitated minutes, even hours, after their hearts first stopped. But here's where it gets complicated. The boundary between life and death is not a single line. It's more like a grey zone, a corridor of shifting definitions. One of the most intriguing sources of insight into what might happen at death comes from near-death experiences, or NDEs. These are reported by people who've come perilously close to dying or were temporarily clinically dead but were then revived. Common themes often emerge: a sense of peace, seeing a bright light, encountering deceased loved ones, or floating outside one's own body, watching the scene unfold from above. What do we make of these stories? Are they proof of an afterlife or simply hallucinations created by a dying brain? Neuroscientists suggest NDEs might be explained by the brain's response to extreme stress. To explore what happens after we die, we must grapple with the nature of consciousness itself. Science acknowledges that consciousness arises from complex brain activity. Several studies have explored the brains of people who are dying. For instance, in the moments around death, there can be unusual surges of brain activity. Quantum physicists and philosophers have gone so far as to question if consciousness could be a fundamental property of the universe, not just produced by the brain, but channeled through it. However, mainstream science cautions us not to jump to conclusions. Humanity's oldest attempt to answer the riddle of death comes from religion and spirituality. Every faith has its own interpretation of what awaits us on the other side. Christianity: many Christians believe in heaven or hell, a place of eternal reward or punishment. Islam teaches that the soul continues into the afterlife, where it faces judgment and may enter paradise or hell. Hinduism introduces the concept of reincarnation. Death is not an end but a transition, as the soul moves to a new life shaped by karma. Buddhism speaks of rebirth in a cycle of samsara until one attains nirvana, escaping the cycle of suffering. Judaism has varied beliefs ranging from a future resurrection, an afterlife in Gan Eden, or more symbolic interpretations of eternal life. Many indigenous and tribal cultures often describe a spiritual realm where ancestors dwell, guiding the living from beyond. These teachings have shaped human morality, culture, and behavior for millennia. They offer comfort, purpose, and a grand narrative that human life in some form persists. A core philosophical puzzle lurking behind this mystery is known as the mind-body problem. Are we purely physical beings, or do we have an immaterial soul or spirit that continues after death? Dualists argue that our minds are separate from our bodies. If so, maybe the mind, soul, or consciousness can survive death. Materialists, on the other hand, say consciousness arises from physical processes: no brain, no mind. This debate is centuries old. René Descartes famously stated, "I think, therefore I am," separating the thinking mind from the physical self. Today's cutting-edge theories, like integrated information theory, try to quantify consciousness. If a threshold of complexity and information integration is needed for consciousness, what happens when that complexity collapses at death? Now consider a futuristic angle. With advances in technology, some predict we'll be able to upload our minds to computers, achieving a form of digital immortality. If that becomes possible, what does it mean for the concept of death? Cryonics aims to preserve bodies, and possibly brains, at ultra-low temperatures, hoping future science can revive them. Some people invest in such procedures, gambling that death is just a technical problem waiting to be solved. While these ideas remain in the realm of speculation, they challenge our traditional view of death as final. If our consciousness can be replicated or preserved in another medium, does that mean we continue? This line of thought raises deep philosophical questions. Even if we survive in digital form, is that truly us or just data arranged to mimic our thoughts and memories? One crucial aspect of what we think of as life after death is the survival of memory and identity. And if you lose your memories, are you still you? If an afterlife exists, but you have no recollection of your earthly existence, what survives? Some religious traditions suggest that your essence, your soul, retains some form of identity and memory. Others say that in reincarnation, memories are wiped but karma remains. From a scientific standpoint, memory is stored in neural connections. When the brain disintegrates after death, memories should vanish, unless, of course, memories exist beyond the physical substrate in some unknown dimension of reality. What about the numerous accounts of ghosts, apparitions, and messages from beyond the grave? Mediums claim to communicate with the spirits of the departed. Skeptics argue that people who are grieving are suggestible, interpreting random events as signs from beyond. Paranormal investigators and spiritualists assert that these events point to continued existence after death. Again, the lack of solid scientific verification keeps these stories in the realm of personal belief rather than established fact. Yet they persist, forming part of the rich tapestry of human attempts to understand what comes next. Despite centuries of inquiry, research, debates, and spiritual teachings, the truth about what happens when we die remains elusive. It's one of life's greatest mysteries. Here's what we do know. We die, biologically speaking. Our bodies cease to function. Whether we move on to another realm, reincarnate, exist in a spiritual dimension, or simply fade into non-existence is something no one can say for sure. For some, that uncertainty is frightening. For others, it's liberating. It reminds us that life is precious because it's finite, or at least it seems so. It drives us to seek meaning, form deep connections, create art, and tell stories. So does this reveal exactly what happens when we die? Maybe not in the definitive way we'd like. Science points to the end of consciousness, spirituality points beyond it, and personal accounts open tantalizing doors of possibility. As you click away from this video, remember, the real journey is in how we live, not just how we die. Ultimately, the mystery of what lies beyond may be eternal, and perhaps that's exactly how it's meant to be. If you found value in this exploration, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep the conversation going, because some mysteries deserve our never-ending curiosity.